Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to check in with my weekly reading, and this week I've spent most of my time reading this book, which is The Boats of the Glen Carrig by William Hope Hodgson. So this book is technically the first in a trilogy, and the second book is The House on the Borderland, and the third one is The Ghost Pirates. They're kind of loosely tied in that it explores potential lurking supernatural things out at sea, and that the sea might be dangerous for reasons that we do not understand. But you do not have to read them in order. In fact, I read The Ghost Pirates first a few years ago, but it was among some of my favorite books of that year, and I really enjoy his writing style. He is just kind of somewhere between Victorian and early weird fiction. He's just like in the middle of that, and he inspired a lot of people like H.P. Lovecraft, and I find his writing just to be so fascinating for that reason, because he's bordering on that Victorian style writing, but at the same time it's a little bit less intimidating in some way and approachable, but also very comforting. Let's talk about it. Hodgson only died at age 40 in the middle of World War I, so he didn't have too many writing years, but the years he did write, he wrote a lot about nautical horror and the supernatural. This book in particular was published in 1907. I was really attracted by this particular cover. I'm going to put a bigger version of it here on the screen. It just looks so vintage sci-fi and pulpy, kind of early art of sci-fi. I love it so much. I wouldn't want any other copy. In terms of writing, it's supposed to be from the 1700s that somebody wrote this book. It tries to imitate the writing style of something like Robinson Crusoe, where you have people stranded on an island and dealing with things, but instead of sort of realism or realistic things, you're dealing with much weirder and stranger things. The novel immediately begins with our narrator telling us that they've already been stranded for 5 days, and they hit something, their ship sunk, or is at least with holes in it, and they're stuck, and they're somewhere on the border of this island. So they kind of alternate between sitting in the boat itself at the beginning, because there's a big storm, there's darkness, you hear many strange sounds and howling. They alternate between passing out and fainting out of fear and just being extremely tired, trying to understand and make sense of it all. Once they kind of get on the island, there are even stranger things happening. You have these human trees, you have these weed people, you have these giant fungi and mushrooms. Now, I've condensed all of these things in a few sentences for you, but the way it's written, it's drawn out. You get long descriptions of fear, of boredom, of routines. There's comfort in that for some reason. And we have a few characters. So we have the main character, whose name I think is John. He's narrating, and there are a few characters on this ship, and one of them dies early on, and the second kind of handyman is the bosun, who usually takes care of repairing the boat, and he even takes time to try to use remains from other shipwrecks to build or rebuild their boat. There's a lot of scenes and depictions of life at sea, of the behavior of the men on the boat, and the interactions they have with each other. And these long descriptions that are drawn out, I just find very comforting. I could listen to people talk about just being stranded out at sea for so long. I don't know why, but I just find that so comforting. And then the ending just takes a strange turn. It doesn't fit in with the atmosphere that's been created in the beginning and middle of this book. But I think Hodgson wanted to tell you that everything turned out okay in the end, and they're happily ever after kind of thing. And I was curious, what did Lovecraft think of this? I've been reading through supernatural horror in literature written by H.P. Lovecraft, and this book is such a good indicator for all of the books and literature that inspired the weird fiction circle in the early 20th century. And Hodgson was definitely on Lovecraft's list. And while he talks about each of the novels in separate terms, I'm just going to read to you what he says about this one. So he says, in The Boats of the Glen Carrig, we are shown a variety of malign marvels and accursed unknown lands as encountered by the survivors of a sunken ship. The brooding menace in the earlier parts of the book is impossible to surpass, though a letdown in the direction of ordinary romance and adventure occurs towards the end. An inaccurate and pseudo-romantic attempt to reproduce 18th century prose detracts from the general effect, but the really profound nautical erudition everywhere displayed is a compensating factor. And I feel like that describes my encounter with it perfectly in much, much better language, because it's Lovecraft. So if you're all for kind of vintage sci-fi, but also early nautical horror and early weird fiction, this is a very fun book, in my opinion. There are also audiobooks out there, so there's a lot of ways to find the text or the audio for this. It's a lot of fun. There's even YouTube videos, so you can really dive in without putting in too much effort, and it's very short. It's not too demanding. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Bye!